Well, a 6-1 decision from the High Court against the government has driven a legal stake through the heart of the Malaysian solution and sent the Immigration Minister back to the drawing board. The next stop for Chris Bowen could be Nauru. Today's setback has been delivered to a government that's looking increasingly embattled. Our political correspondent Tom Eagleton was in the High Court in Canberra for today's landmark decision.
The Prime Minister's response to the High Court decision was brief and telling.
Nothing in it is going to diminish our resolve to break the people smugglers' business model. We will study the decision though. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
The government fought long and hard for the Malaysia solution, and now it's in tatters.
Let's make no bones about it. Today's decision by the High Court is a profoundly disappointing one.
Others say the decision's a triumph for the legal system.
It takes some intellectual strength for courts to stand up and say that a government is wrong.
The government's defence of its policy rested on an affidavit the court requested of Chris Bowen to back up legal claims that Malaysia would protect the human rights of asylum seekers Australia sent there. In it, the minister said following personal talks with his Malaysian counterpart, he was convinced Kuala Lumpur was keen to improve its treatment of refugees and asylum seekers, had made a significant conceptual shift and was committed to a new approach. But Chief Justice French and 5 of his colleagues said that wasn't enough, judging that it is clear that he did not look to any basis for his declaration in Malaysia's international obligations or relevant domestic laws.
And if they do not offer that sort of protection, well then we can't simply shunt them over there without processing their claim for protection.
The judgment also says the minister had to take into account Malaysia's track record, including the caning of asylum seekers.
The court has now ruled that it would be unlawful to expel them to that type of situation.
The minister should have known that. He didn't think it through. He's been found out by the High Court.
The lawyer who brought the case says his clients are relieved.
They're absolutely petrified of being sent there, very frightened.
Right through this process, the Immigration Minister's argued that the government's been on safe legal ground. He can't appeal today's decision, and even if he finds other ways around it, today's judgment has dealt a serious blow to the government's credibility. The coalition's making the most of the disruption.
A government that just simply can't get anything right.
The minister's keeping an open mind about reopening the Nauru detention centre and reintroducing temporary protection visas, hallmarks of the Howard government's Pacific solution.
I'm not ruling anything in or out in terms of our response.
But the High Court decision could limit the government's options.
There are potential ramifications for offshore processing generally. We've sought advice on that.
The Malaysian solution failed in the High Court partly because Kuala Lumpur isn't a signatory to the UN Convention on Refugees. The government's been negotiating a potential backup deal with Papua New Guinea. It is a signatory to the convention, but that may not count in the High Court.
Because what they're saying is that you need to have effective protection in place. It's not just about whether or not you're signatory to the convention.
Confidential internal UNHCR documents obtained earlier this year by Lateline leave little doubt Papua New Guinea would fail that test. Dated May this year, the document says there is no effective legal or regulatory process to address refugee issues. It adds the country has few or no immigration officers with any notion of refugee protection, and in summary it notes the Papua New Guinea government offers no resources for the care, maintenance, support or protection of asylum seekers or refugees. Another offshore processing deal that appears headed for trouble. Tom Eagleton, Lateline.